Now I would like to introduce the next keynote address, the CEO of Jackman Reinvents, Mr. Joe Jackman.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks, Jane. So that was pretty cool. I really took some great stuff away from Jessica's remarks, and she talked a little bit about why, and then got into the how. And I'd like to expand on that idea of how. Thank you for sharing those. I run a really cool business from at least my point of view, and we get to help companies get back to growth and relevance. And I think there is ample evidence today that older companies, those that have been around a long time, are those that really do need to see the curve in the road and not treat it as the end. You know, the ability to understand that change is a requirement, that innovation is required. This idea of now is so important for a lot of reasons. If you're a new business, there's limitless possibilities for creating value. If you're an old business, you're realizing that the risk of change is outweighed by the risk of standing still. That is really what's happening today. And my career has really been working mostly with older, well-established legacy businesses. And you can just see the wreckage on the road when you understand that, wow, they saw the curve coming. They didn't negotiate the turn, and it turned out, in fact, to be the end of the road. There's lots of those, and unfortunately, what used to be slow motion is now in high speed, high relief. We can see a lot more companies in that same position. So we know that now is the moment. Innovation is not an option. Innovation is a requirement. You know, the way I think about it is you either choose to disrupt or be willing to be disrupted. So let me now talk about the critical question, though. If now is the moment, well, how? How do you do it? And let me share a few thoughts that I've learned. The first and most important is that innovation is not about ideas. It's not about technology. It's about humanity. It's about how humans cope with change. And all innovation actually rests on one thing, and that is a human, a person saying, I'm willing to go there into the unknown. I'm willing to give my support. I'm willing to take a risk. And I'm going to do that on the basis that I think that there is a better way, or there is value to be created, or there is some great outcome that is going to matter. And that is actually something that you can design and act into. It shouldn't be a happenstance. It should be, let's think about how to put things in human terms so that people have a better opportunity to actually say, I can relate to that. I may not be able to relate to technology. I'm the least qualified person to be on this stage amongst you to be talking about technology. But what I can tell you is, if technology and moving things forward relies on people just going, I get it. You know, your point, Jessica, was about communication. Communication is simply, how can I say things to you in a way that you'll relate to and you'll be inclined to support? So let's kind of jump into that. Getting buy-in and support for your ideas, there actually is a secret sauce, and I'm happy to share with you what we've learned. And one of the things that's so important is, and this I've learned in a longer career than just my 10 years at Jackman, is that there is one force you want on your side. And it is the most powerful thing that when you have it at your back, it will take you forward and increase the likelihood of success. Of course, that's momentum. You know, when you have it, things just have a way of lining up. People have a way of moving forward. Barriers have a way of falling down because you can crash through them. So let's talk about how to get those things together. So Scott Belsky, I was doing a little reading on him, and pretty cool guy, invested in lots of companies, created some great companies. He said it's not about ideas, it's about making ideas happen. And of course, we know that to be true. I would say it's actually not about even that. It's about this idea of humanity. There are so many great ideas out there, so many possibilities to change people's lives, to make things better, to change the world even in some way. Why is it that so many of them fail? Or at least fail to live up to the promise? Well, it's because a lot of conditions have to go right for innovation to actually happen. There needs to be a general sense that this is worthwhile. There needs to be a general sense of buy-in and support. Well, all of those things come down to human nature. If I can understand the mission of something that is innovative, and I can understand the human benefit associated with it, beyond the technicality of it, my chances of being able to relate to it go up, and therefore your chances of success go up. So the way I think about it is my job and your job is to do everything in our power to make sure, regardless of your role, to make sure that people get it and that they are inclined to support. So what is the secret to doing that? As mentioned, Sheetal said this in his remarks, it's about mindset. It's about this set of conditions that are caused by the way you think and behave that will actually up the chances of success. Consider that, as I mentioned, fundamentally all innovation rests on people saying, I'm in. So how do we get there? You need to get people to place a bet into the unknown. So let me share with you a formula for actually doing that. TM, finally got a trademark on this, the reinventionist mindset. So this is a set of principles. It's just 5. They're actually quite simple in their construct. But I'm going to look at the world of innovation, your world, through this lens and these principles and give you a sense of what I see. We hold these at the highest level in my business. We practice them. We teach them, actually, and we ask our engagement partners or clients to actually uphold these as well. It's a precondition for working with us. There's 5 of them, and they're defined to enable change, to make innovation and all manner of moving forward possible. So let's unpack each. Pretty obvious point. You got to see possibilities. Technology unearths a lot of possibilities. Hey, that could be something that we could do. And maybe there's value there. Financial value, human value, cultural value, whatever it might be. But just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. And innovation for innovation's sake is really not very smart. And the likelihood that it is going to move forward to the promised land is a lot less unless you can put it into the context of humanity. What is it that we're going to achieve? What benefit will be accomplished that people can relate to? So framing things in human terms, generating real human insight in your early work is a prerequisite to innovation. Second, plain and simple, this one is about courage and the willingness to take chances, the willingness to make cases to do things that cannot be based on fact. You know, if you think about facts, what do facts have in common? All of them. They are historically real, history. They cannot predict the future. You cannot make a strong case on the basis of what has gone before. So what does it require? Intuition, instincts, judgment, and of course the first point I made around real insights. That's how you make a case. And it takes courage to trust those instincts and to bring other people in. Innovation, as you know very well, I was actually, your Saturday night story, I was thinking, that sounds painful. You know, innovation's not easy, right? We know that. In our experience, uncertainty is actually one of the main reasons that lots of big companies, the left side of the room, the corporate side of the room, the reason they don't make change is because, you know, there's only a couple things that corporations value at the very highest level. Predictability and reliability. Well, what is innovation the antithesis of? Those things. If I can't see it, predict it, be certain it's going to happen in that way, I'm less inclined to support. Well, back to the point around, make no change, and that's a greater risk than any change you could possibly imagine. So companies these days are letting their desire for absolute certainty stand in the way between the moment they're in and the moment they could be in, and the consequences are huge. It's a bigger risk of doing nothing at all today. And I think most enlightened business leaders are getting that, but this idea of everything new will make you uncomfortable is really, really foundational. It's counterintuitive. Exactly. If it makes you uncomfortable, move towards it, lean into it, chase it. That's a fundamental in innovation. Build the future now. How many folks in this room have been privy to an email that says, you know what we really need? We need to be more innovative as a culture. We need an innovation strategy. Hey, everyone, let's have a brainstorming session. Let's have an innovation session. And what generally happens in those moments? At the end, you go, well, that was kind of interesting. There was some ideas that maybe are potential for some time in the future, but I can't really see them happening now or next, maybe 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Well, actually, I'm now preaching to the converted. You know this better than I do. The future isn't some far-off place that's coming. The future is here, and it's now. And if we are not building into it, if we are not testing things, as was talked about, learning, discarding things that aren't working quickly, scaling things that are, we are behind by definition. The future's not waiting for us. We have to move. I'm just going to check my notes and see if I got everything off of this slide. Okay, what we learned is that the best way to define the future is decide what you want to be and just start being it. In small ways, medium-sized ways, big ways, you will actually step your way into the future. And one day you'll realize, holy crap. By the way, Sheetal was the first to swear. So that ice has already been broken. So if I swear, I feel it's okay. He's the guy. So a guy I used to work with said to me one day when I was sweating the detail on something, which was actually quite promising, but I was holding it close and keeping it, in the lab. And he said, Joe, look, balance getting it right with getting on with it. It's not a moonshot. Unless you work for NASA, you can be off a couple degrees. You're not going to miss the planet. Get it directionally right and start moving towards it and home in as you go. Obsess the outcome. This is about relentlessness. No amount of strategy will take you to a place that you have not defined. You need to understand the destination because there is no strategy without a destination. Strategy is simply, I'm here, I want to go there, now I'm going to write a strategy and a plan to get me there. If I don't know where there is, I think Lewis Carroll said it really well, Alice in Wonderland. Could you tell me how to get where I'm going? And the Mad Hatter said, well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. You need to define what that outcome is as crisply as you can. You need to make it tangible. Blueprint was shown. Do a picture, conceptualize it, words, images, something that you can show to people that makes it less abstract so that they can go, I get it. I know where we're trying to go. It's in human terms. I get the benefit. I know why this counts. I may not get the technology, I may not get the steps, but I get the destination. And guess what happens? When people can see a place and they get excited by it, what's the natural inclination? We will move towards it together, right? Once you've got that, then it's stuff you'd expect. Be relentless in your pursuit of it. Measure your progress towards it and communicate the progress. Say, these things are working, we're excited. These things we learned are telling us that we're not on the right track here and here and here. That constant loop is so critical, but it all rests on being clear about what that outcome is. And don't rest until you've achieved your blueprint or your outcome. Here's the secret sauce. I promised or alluded to I'd share something. This is what I learned in more years than I care to recall. working with lots of big companies, more recently, some pretty cool startups. Haiku is a marijuana company we're working with right now. Those folks are creating the future now in a very, very fluid regulatory environment. And I just am so excited to be partnered with them. But hey, here's how it works. The fifth most important principle is to make momentum together, because collaboration is actually the secret sauce. It is the means. You were talking about it, Jessica, a moment ago. You might ask why much innovation, and certainly lots of strategy, fails. Well, there's this little truth in human nature, and that is, I have a tendency to support that which I help to create. So your job, if you want to up the success that your innovation is going to stick and actually create real value, is to bring people in, to make them feel it's their idea, to listen carefully, to solicit input different from your own, to encourage people to say, this isn't, hey, I've got this cool innovation, my name's Joe, I'm trying to pitch it to you. This is, how can we make this fragile yet promising idea into a robust, durable, commercial value? And it's going to take a village, right? We know that. So simply put, you just need to engage people. You need to bring them in. You need to listen to them. You need to open up. It's counterintuitive. Don't do this and hold it tight. Do this. Welcome. Please help us. Help me to create something of value that we can all be excited and proud of. And guess what happens when you do this? When you collaborate, you get that magic dust of momentum. So in the end, we can't predict the future, we can only create it. We can't predict 100% of the time which idea or which innovation track is going to work. But what we can do is adopt a different way of thinking and behaving that will up the chances that it's going to work. And I love the idea that with the right intention and the right idea and acting and behaving in this way, you can actually do anything. You know, this is really about understanding humanity and what it takes to move into the future together. So, you know, I've seen it firsthand, big companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, communities of people, clear on an outcome, saying, I really want to go there. I really want to be part of this. And moving there together with power and focus. So I'm going to leave you with three questions. I'm hopeful that these can be sort of in your toolkit. Anytime you say, I think there's a possibility to do something really meaningful here, just ask these three questions and answer them. What is the human insight we are solving for? Not the technical possibility, but the human insight. What is the outcome that we are all working towards? Let's define that blueprint. Let's really be clear about it. Let's keep it top of mind as we move towards it. And how can we get there together? You know, I think about it as manufacturing momentum. You're going to do a number of things. Is there a particular sequence with which those moments, those explosions, can happen so that you maximize the greatest amount of momentum? And in some ways, you really need to predict it out and say, if this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, wouldn't that make things go faster? Wouldn't people be more bought in? Wouldn't they be believers? All of that can be designed at the outset when you're clear on what that blueprint you're heading towards is. So I'll leave you with this thought. Innovation is a human pursuit. It's triggered by human understanding. It's shaped and focused by human insight. And it is vaulted forward into the future at a pace by human engagement. So as much as you're going to hear a lot of amazing stuff, AI and VR and all that, just keep in mind a few of these thoughts. And I wish you well, because it's such an exciting moment to be doing what you're doing today. And I'm really, really honored to be invited to this stage to be with you. So I think we have a couple of minutes. If there's any questions, comments, actually better than questions. If you have a comment, a moment in a journey you'd like to share, I'm sure this audience would love to hear it, as would I. So not sure if we have a mic or, okay. Anybody want to put up their hand? Yes, please.
You're working in the cannabis space with Haiku. What other innovations? Sorry. You're working with Haiku in the cannabis space. What other innovation do you see coming out of that space, specifically in what we call the gray market space right now?
Well, if you think about cannabis recreationally, you can think about it as entertainment in a way. But I think there is promise to the cannabis world that actually has a whole world of healthful benefits, CBDs and such. And I think that innovation will happen in so many ways that actually has quite a promise to benefit humanity. I think about people that I know well that have health issues and how cannabis has helped them in their journey. I was just reading this amazing article in the New York Times about hallucinogenics and LSD. This is Michael Pollan. If you get a chance to read his latest book, he talks about the power of hallucinogenics. Now, of course, if you're from my generation, like that's back in the day when everybody's like unplugged and doing whatever, or today's version is Burning Man or Coachella, I don't know what's going on, but it's really, really promising. And I think that there's real innovation, not to mention innovation in the delivery system, the channel, digitally as well as physically. How is that all going to unfold? Pretty exciting stuff. I'll give you another example of innovation. This is a company that we're invested in, shameless plug number 2, Flow Water. What's this business doing? Does the world need another water product? Well, we're helping them reinvent a category. And the trouble with the current category is it's in plastic bottles. And we got to stop all that stuff. So how this goes to market, this is now not only on shelves across North America, tens of thousands of doors now, but it's electric vehicles delivering it to homes and offices. And it's the lowest carbon footprint. So, innovation can take many forms. This doesn't come with like a really super cool app, but it might, who knows? So, any other question, comment? Yes, sir? Wow, I was really, no kidding, I was gonna go, any questions? No? Thank you. I'm out.
So I see you're saying that innovation is human. Unfortunately, I'm a human who works a lot with the public sector.
Ah, yes.
And we talk a good game about innovation, but our actual ability to deliver and bring innovation within the public sector is pretty challenging. Have you worked with the public sector in any way? And how can we hack away at some of those silos and practices and the political risk of actually innovating, not just talking about innovating?
So you're talking public sector, meaning government, not
Government,
publicly traded companies?
Yeah, no, government, public sector.
Yeah. So I haven't had a lot of experience in government. But what I do know is that government today is a lot more tuned into what people believe and how they're thinking, acting, and what they're talking about. And so I think of it as a lag. I'd love to say that governments are leading the way. I'm sure that you who know government by the sounds of it, there might be pockets that that's actually happening. But the lag between what the community believes and what government does used to be decades long. And now it's closing like everything else and getting tight. So I think about that moment, the spring moment in Egypt. Unfortunately, it didn't go, the way many around the world hoped. But that was actually an instance where the gap had been closed to a nanosecond. It was simply, this is what we believe, this is what we want. And government's job, if they intend to stay, doing what they're doing, is to respond and be responsive. Ideally, we'd like to see them be proactive. I'm talking to one government leader right now, and I'd love to teach the reinventionist mindset to government leaders. Thanks for your question. Any other?